Whitmer. He's the latest. And of course, Ryan Kelley from West Michigan, no stranger to this program. He's been on before. Ryan, we appreciate you being here with us today. How are you?
I'm doing well, Justin. Thanks for having me on again today. It's good to see you. It was good to see you last weekend at the event as well at the Deltaplex. And how are you this morning?
Great crowd for that. Really interesting to see people come out. And there's a National Day of Prayer. There's a big rally today at the Capitol steps in Lansing. And I think we've seen throughout this whole issue of the pandemic, we have seen people come together at these rallies and, of course, these celebrations, some of them. But, thousands of people. I remember last year in April streaming into town. Nothing I think we've ever seen anything like it before in Lansing. Car after car after car for miles. One of these big protests where people came together and said, enough is enough. And now I'm struck by the contrast when we see that. And then I don't know if you've heard this story, but the headline was Governor Whitmer among 7 awarded for courage by the JFK Foundation. And if you look underneath the headline here, 7 people who risked their own health and safety to help and protect others during the coronavirus pandemic will receive the Profile and Courage Awards next month from the John F. Kennedy Foundation. And I don't know if there's anything more laughable, but boy, oh boy, watching that happen. I don't know how she risked her life or her health at all during that ordeal. But boy, I got to tell you, she sure put other folks' lives and their health at risk. And one of those stories we just heard, as a matter of fact, is a tragic story. There's a new website called victimsofwhitmer.com that I encourage people to go check out and read these stories. I read one this morning. It was from a man, about a man named Richard Silver, who was a veteran Purple Heart recipient. And he ended up taking his own life because the lockdowns took such a toll on him. But he's not alone. There are countless other stories like this. I actually have a friend who took his own life last year. Story after story that we just are getting lost. Not to mention the photo homes in the shuffle here. And Ryan, I guess I would just ask you, how do you change things? How do you turn things around in a state like Michigan, where it seems like folks are ready for that?
This is not an isolated situation either. As you mentioned, the website, there's many stories that are on that website that are very similar to what you just shared with us. And I have spoke with many of those people before the website even launched and heard their stories and, heard the tears over the phone of what they went through with whether it was someone close in their family or a friend of theirs. And people have had enough in the state of Michigan. When you mentioned that award, I don't know much about that award, but it does seem like a Made for America TV type of approach there, and not really any grounding in exactly why that award should be awarded in that capacity. I know the governor of New York also received something last year that it was a Made for TV America type style award. And it's interesting that that's the place that we're in right now in this state and country. But people in this state have had enough. They've experienced over 2020 oppression in a lot of ways, especially in the business community. And we've seen countless number of businesses shut down. Alpine Rose out in Holland, Michigan, recently shut its doors permanently. I went to that restaurant a number of times and have loved eating there, bringing the family there, and now it is gone. And unfortunately, that is not an isolated situation either. There are many restaurants across the country or across the state, banquet conference centers that are struggling. And I've been speaking with them all over the state as I've traveled around. They want a new direction. And how do you do that was your question, right? I think number one, we need to have a governor with a backbone that is willing to stand up and say the things that need to be said and do the things that need to be done in order to realign Michigan with freedom and prosperity. Michigan is an amazing state. I love this state. We have so many amazing natural resources. Our Upper Peninsula is incredible. We have so much coastline, freshwater coastline. So many of the small cities up and down the coast of Michigan are incredible to visit in the summertime. Our forests, we have a rich history of innovation here in the state of Michigan, and our national leadership. All of those things make Michigan an amazing place. And what we've seen happen in 2020 is a very sad situation, but not all hope is lost. We have a very hopeful future because people like you and I, Justin, and so many others have had enough, and we're stepping up in various capacities in order to realign the state with freedom and prosperity. And so you asked the question, how do you do that? By a lot of hard work, by continuing to talk about those things and continuing to be involved and be the change that we want to see, realigning with our constitutional values, realigning with American values, and making sure that when we move forward here, that this state of Michigan does not fall to what it is communism.
No, I know there's a lot of folks who feel the same way. What are some of the things we can do? I mean, I guess I'll just bring this up because it's one of the frustrations that I continually hear from people is that we hear a lot of talk from the Republican majority in the legislature here in Michigan, but we don't see a lot of action. So what specifically would make things different? Because I know, you have the ideas, you want to go to Lansing, you want to go to DC, and you want to fight, but there's a system there that's in place. How do you effectively fight that system?
Mm-hmm. It's a really great question, and it is a complicated answer because it takes, there's a lot of moving parts there, and there's a lot of things that need to happen communication-wise, maybe electing some new people and being able to stand up for what's right and not try to play political games back and forth. People's lives mean more than political games between politicians, and we've seen that in 2020. So I think part of that is having, kind of like a line in the sand and say, we stand for this, and not looking to compromise. And not looking to compromise is on those American values, right? I've just rolled out my Michigan First policy agenda on my website, ryandkelley.com. You can see all of our agenda points there for our Michigan First policies and be able to look through and see the changes that my administration will make. I think it's going to take somebody that is willing to draw a hard line in the sand and say, look, we want to represent the entire state, but we need to realign with some American values. We need to realign things in Michigan that are going to bring freedom and prosperity. I have a TikTok that has been doing very well. And sadly enough, there's a lot of comments of people wanting to leave Michigan. Yeah. Why is that? They want to go somewhere where freedom is respected, where they have the opportunity to live their life the way that we know how to live our lives in the United States. And that's with, freedom, and that's with the ability to live the American dream. So we need to create an environment here in Michigan where people are excited to move to Michigan. They're excited to enjoy our natural resources and say, this is a place that I want to live, and a place to start their family, a place to have a business. They're being pushed away right now by the current administration from those very ideas. We need to turn that back the other direction. And we need some people that are willing to step up and be able to draw those lines in the sand and say, no, we're not going to go to this far left ideology. We're not going to go for critical race theory in our schools. We're not going to have this overreach of the government. We need to go back to a limited government so people have the opportunity to thrive and are willing to stand up for that. My track record in 2020, I've been doing that in multiple capacities all around the state. And now here I am running for governor to bring those very ideas to Lansing.
Ryan D. Kelley, KELLEY.com is the website. We're showing some of it here if you're watching on Facebook and Twitter and the other usual places where we stream. You'll be able to see that. But Ryan, you mentioned folks wanting to move out of the state. I just noticed today that Governor DeSantis down in Florida signed an election integrity bill down there. A lot of folks asking about that with the 2020 election. He put some good things into practice there, and he signed it into law on Fox and Friends this morning, and had quite a crowd supporting him behind him. These policies that you're talking about, they're very popular. Florida continues to grow. A state that was free throughout the entire last year and continues to remain that way. In fact, we lost people during the census. We showed that we're going to lose a House seat as well here in the state of Michigan. People are leaving.
That's the indicator right there. And you're right. These policies are very popular right now. Election integrity is one of the critical components across the country in how we're going to move forward as a republic. I have a spot on my website where people have sent me just hundreds and hundreds of authentic feedback. What does a better Michigan look like? And what are our top 2 issues facing our state from these people's perspective all around the state? I've called back so many of them and had personal conversations. So A, I can get a pulse on the state, and B, learn what, from their perspective, the people of the state, how they want to be represented. And election integrity is one of the ones that is a common thread. People want to know in 2022 and beyond, are we going to have an election that we feel confident in? Because millions of people do not feel confident in the 2020 election. And that needs to continue to be looked at. Down in Arizona, they're right now going through the audit, as many people know. The Antrim County case is continuing to be looked at here in Michigan. Places like Florida with Governor DeSantis are putting things in place so that we can have more confidence in our elections. That's what people want. That is not a partisan issue by any means when it comes to the majority of Americans. We want to know, may the best man or woman win, feel confident in the end in the results. That is a very American idea. So I think we're going to continue to see that trend across the state of Michigan. You can look at my Michigan First policy and see exactly what we're going to do. We laid out some of the points. There's a lot of components to election integrity. Moving into the 2022 election, we need people to be involved because the current administration, I'm guessing, is not going to be signing any election integrity legislation. So we need people to be involved to make sure that we're holding it accountable. There's a lot of things that we can do. And I think that is one of the big components to making sure that, we talked in the beginning of the show, involvement by people to make sure that we're holding that election accountable. Once I'm governor, we can sign some things that will, put laws in place to make people feel more comfortable moving forward. That is a major critical component to our republic. We have to have fair and valid elections that when we're done, we say, man, my gal lost, my gal won, whatever it is, my guy, he was the winner, and I feel good about it. That's very important to our country. That and medical freedom are 2 big ones that are nonpartisan issues right now that are very, very hot topics.
We'll be talking a lot about that in the coming days too, as we see that happening across the country. A call, as you mentioned, medical freedom. It's a big talking point right now. People want to talk about that. So, Ryan, we're just getting short on time here. We're going to have you back, as I'm sure we're going to talk more with you throughout the next coming weeks and months as this thing progresses. But let me ask you one quick question before we let you leave, because we're getting this question in the chat, and I think it's a good question because there's been a lot of great folks standing up over the last year. And now we have a couple of really good choices to look at for folks that are running for governor. So what makes you stand out amongst those choices?
Mm-hmm. We can look at the things that I've done over 2020. I've not backed down. I've stood up. And the intention as I was doing all of the different rallies and traveling around the state last year was not to set up to run for governor. It was to stand up for America. I believe in America. I believe that Michigan is worth fighting for. I have a long track record in 2020 of just doing those very things. I believe that authenticity towards what our country stands for is very important, and people with a backbone willing to stand up. So I think over time, as we have more candidates join, that we need to look very closely at each candidate and see what their past track record is and have the conversation between the candidates. Look, our state deserves to have the very best governor moving into 2023. That is going to happen by conversation. That is going to happen by candidates getting together, talking, whether it's on live TV, live streams, on the internet, and all of those things. People need to really become educated on what each candidate stands for and who is going to be the very best choice. And I'll tell you, I'm going to put in 100% effort. I'm going to share just a short story here, right? Throughout 2020, I asked God for direction. I asked God if he would show me which way he would like my life to go. And I want to walk that path in faith with him and alongside his mission. And my very real world answer was that I should run for governor. I took it as a coincidence. I took it as a brush off, but over time and through more prayer and talk with my wife, we made the decision to follow where God led us. And so I will continue to walk down that path. I will continue to put all of my efforts and energies into this because America is worth fighting for. Michigan is worth fighting for. Our kids' futures are worth fighting for. And over time, may the best candidate be the choice that Michigan makes.
Ryan Kelley, thank you so much for being here with us today. We appreciate you taking the time. Ryan D. Kelley, KELLEY.com, the website. You can find out more about his policy, where he stands, and of course, find him on TikTok. There, if you're if you're on TikTok for the for the youth, for the kids. Hey, appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking some time to be here with us today.
Thank you, sir. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
You got it. We'll be having conversations with all of these folks as we continue to roll out. And your questions, as always, welcome. And we want to make sure you're informed as the process rolls out here. Get the good news, the news they don't want you to hear. Hear from folks like Ryan and more. Go to justinbarclay.com/good news so we can stay in touch.